How you doing?
So far, so good.
Good.
You know the story about so far, so good?
No, what?
A guy was jumping down from the 99th floor of the Empire State Building. His name was Jack. And a fellow on the 40th floor was watching him falling down. And he hollered to him, "Jack, how you doing?" And he said, "So far, so good." So where do we begin? I was born on the 31st of December 1911 on a street of Mainz am Rhein called Auf der Insel. I had a twin sister. I guess I was in a hurry because I'm the firstborn, and I have been in a hurry ever since. My father had a custom tailoring business in the apartment where we lived. My mother was born in Warsaw, Poland. She kept a kosher home. She was a wonderful mother. She was very good to us. I went for 4 years to Hebrew school. I was very religious. I wore an Abercomfort. I laid the fill-in every day. I would argue with my mom on a Saturday. You cannot put the light on and the stars are not out yet. After attending Hebrew school for 4 years, I attended the high school, Oberrealschule. It was a school of which the director was very reluctant to accept me because he said there's only one other Jewish boy out of 1,700 on the campus, and why don't you send your son, he said to my father, to the Handelsrealschule where he will find more of his co-religionists. I mean, we did not have a youth. Our youth was, we had no fun, no good times. All we were concerned with was emigration, where to go. It was a very, very dreary time. As soon as I was legally able to leave school, which was at the age of 14, I quit school and went to work as an apprentice at Leonard's, which was a department store. The department manager was also an anti-Semite. He made many remarks humiliating me. I was thinking of going to America in 1929 because primarily of my experiences of having been humiliated and faced anti-Semitism. I felt never right as a German. There was parades with songs which were terribly violative and brutal. The Horst Wessel song, which speaks, "We are happy when the Jewish blood drips from our swords." I also read the book Mein Kampf, and I believe everything he wrote in this book that he's going to do. Now, the German Jew was the most assimilated Jew in Europe. And for them it was just unthinkable that something of nature would happen, which Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf. I had the opposite point of view. I was absolutely sure that there was no future for Jews in Germany. There was only one place to go, and it's to get out of Germany. If I would have done nothing in the world but leave Germany earlier and make it possible for both families and all their siblings to come out in time, which is rather unique, which is rather rare. If I would have nothing done in this world, I'd be at peace. When I completed my apprenticeship at the age of 17, I made an application for a visa, and my application was accepted, and I was told to go to Cologne. And it was on October 29 when we went to Cologne to pick up our visa And when we were told that our trip was in vain, that there is a big economic collapse in the United States, that the consul has instructions from the State Department not to issue a single solitary visa to anybody. That was the end of it, and of course, like so often in life, if something negative happens, sometimes that negative happening can turn out to be very positive. And the positive thing was the fact that had I gone to America in 1929, I wouldn't have met my beloved Hilda, who I met her when she was 16. I was living in a pension with a friend of mine. His name was Willy Baumgarten, I remember. And on a Sunday afternoon, he said, let's go to the Riesenfürstenhof, which was a beautiful hotel situated on the banks of the River Rhine. The citizens of Koblenz came there with their eligible daughters for dancing. He asked me to go with him. I said, I'm not going to dance. I don't like to dance, but I go with you and I get myself the Berliner Tageblatt, which was the equivalent of the New York Times here. I read the paper and you do all the dancing you want. And he kept on bugging me to dance, and I said, leave me alone. I told you I don't want to dance. It got so bad that in order to shut him up, he said, you have to dance with this lady over there, Miss Hilda Gottschalk. She's a fabulous dancer. And I agreed. And I danced with her. And as the cliche goes, the rest of history. She became my wife. I was attracted to Grammy because she had a terrific sense of humor. She was a lot of fun, and I was just the opposite. My dad always said, why don't you smile? Do I have to pay you to smile? I also loved Grammy because she was a very loving, a very caring, a very giving person. As well as her two daughters. She worked always very hard, she shared my interests, she helped me to build a family, build a home. Whatever I achieved in this world, I couldn't have done it without her.
Let's do it.
My interest in Zionism was initiated and nurtured by my membership in Zionist youth organizations like Blau-Weiß, or Blue-White, Kadima, and later on Hashomer HaTzair. We collected the blue boxes twice a year to collect money. And then we saw a movie from Rishon LeZion and Pedach Tikva, where the French Rothschild family had financed some settlements. Never in my life at that time would I ever think that in my lifetime I would see the creation of a Jewish state. And that is the miracle of the century. When it actually happened, we were dumbfounded. I was glued to my shortwave radio, and I remember listening to the people dancing in the streets of Tel Aviv when the state was finally created. Not only have I been an ardent supporter of the creation of this state of Israel, I also have been involved in Jewish life and Jewish institution in this country. For the good of the community, I have served for the Jewish Family Service now for 33 years, and I hope to continue doing it for the foreseeable future. In Cleveland, Ohio, I was one of the co-founders of a congregation called the Gates of Hope, or Sha'arei Tikva. That congregation was a refugee congregation. It wasn't very long before I became a president of that small congregation. I was elected and re-elected 8 times, with one interruption, which was the war. I raised a lot of money, and they called the big dining hall the Julius Rothschild Hall. It was named after me. Words of love, words of hatred, Some are profane, some are sacred. I was trimmed to poetry after my daughter Judy passed away. I wrote almost every single day I wrote a poem. When I'm deeply wrought up, stirred up, emotionally stirred up, I can write poetry. When I feel good and normal, I would say, I don't write poetry. When Judy was 19 or 20 years old, she came to me, asked me whether she'd go out of town to college. I said, where do you want to go? He said to Santa Barbara. Don't go to Santa Barbara. Stay another year at UCLA, and if you want to go away, go far away. Go to a different country, I told her. Learn a different language. Learn something about another civilization, another culture. She listened to me, and a year later, she went to Grenoble. She came back fluent in French, and eventually she became a teacher at the Lusinger High School, teaching French. They were in the first years or 2 years of their marriage. Then came the big shock when she became forgetful, forgot to pick up her children, forgot to keep a lunch date with me. She had a brain tumor. She was ill for 1 week, I would say. And the following Monday morning, I called her up and I tried to imitate a famous actor of that time by the name of Cary Grant. And I said, Judy, Judy, Judy. And I said, I cannot say it as well as Cary Grant, but I did my best. I never saw Judy alive again anymore. She had an operation on December the 3rd. She came out of operation on life support, and she looked beautiful. She looked beautiful. I see her every night before I go to bed, before I go to sleep. It was devastating. Devastating for both of us, more so for Hilde, because after a while I had to go to work, to business. Hilde was home, mourning and grieving. And that's when she asked me in 1976, 3 years after Judy died, please retire, stay with me. I make it worth your while, and I did. I believe firmly that one must have a mission in life, one must have a purpose in life, and I think when I can make other people laugh, I think I'm doing some good. A United Airlines plane takes off from the Los Angeles airport. The plane is under the command of Harry Shapiro, who is Jewish, who is the captain, and Sam Lee, who is the second officer, who is of Chinese descent. I honestly believe there is no better therapy than a little bit wit, a little bit humor, for these people to make them forget their aches and pains. You know that the Jews were sinking the Titanic? Harry said, you are crazy. It was an iceberg. Iceberg, Rosenberg, Silverberg, to me it's all the same. I think anybody who can give something of himself and impart it to other people for their betterment does something very profitable for the parties concerned as well as for himself. I thank you for waiting for me. I try to keep active. I try to do something every day. If I don't have anything, I'm going to find something to do. Being active is very important. I always say to my elderly friends whom I see every Friday, exercise of the mind is just as important as exercise is to the body. I like to do things for myself because it is a measure of my state of health. As long as I can do for myself, I'm okay. I want to live by myself. I want to have help in the house. I don't like to be institutionalized because I still think the West home is better than the best institutions. It's very difficult to transplant an old tree. That's the saying goes. And that's true for human being transferred from one place to another.
You don't mind schlepping those, huh?
No, I'm a good schlepper. I tell you, I spent here half of what I spent at Ralph.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I cherish my independence. That's right, I suppose. In old age, I issued a new Declaration of Independence. I'm aware of the many blessings which the Almighty has bestowed upon me, and I suppose my prayers are not a demand for future blessings, but they're rather an expression of gratitude for past blessings. Six grandchildren, three great-grandchildren, one of them knocking on the door to be admitted. What did I have? Four weddings, 5 bar mitzvahs. Can one ask for more? I'm a very blessed man. Some probably call me lucky, some call me fortunate. Well, let's say all of the above. But I'm grateful every day because not do I have had a long life, but a little good life. Because the first 50 years were very hard, were very difficult. But that also has a positive side because when you go through difficult times, which I did when I came to this country, you build up a certain immunity against adversity, and you come out of it much stronger, much more able to cope with whatever may come up in the future because you already have gone through it. The only thing I could say, the most important thing in life as you get older is the family. Stick to the family. Make every effort to strengthen the bonds of family, overcome difficulties and even anger at times, and realize that the bonds which bind you are much stronger than all the things which separate you.
I'm so grateful to my father and my mother for the part they played in the lives of my children and Judy's children, my sister's children, Dean and Michelle. I think for my parents, for my dad especially, it was a kind of a reparation and a second chance to do some of the things with his grandchildren that he wasn't able to do in his own childhood. So grateful as a parent that he was so much a part of my children's lives. He attended all his grandchildren's special events. He coached soccer with my husband for many years. He took the grandchildren on trips, usually to Israel and one other country. That is a real treasure for me and for his grandchildren, that he was so much a part of their lives.
He's an amazing, amazing man, always young at heart, always had boundless energy, always had more energy than I did, than I can ever remember having, to the point where he was often restless, you know, like always with ants in his pants. And I remember saying to him on many times, "Calm down, Grandpa, relax, patience is a virtue." And he would joke and say, well, it's not one of mine. Well, he wasn't joking, he was serious.
He's taught us the value of hard work, the meaning of family and commitment, the importance of charity and compassion for those who are less fortunate than we are.
I think I can attribute a lot of what each of us have accomplished to all of my grandparents and to my parents, but yes, to my grandfather. And he set the bar very high as far as accomplishment and achievement. But I think that he's really taught us some very valuable lessons, and not taught by sitting us down and instructing us as far as what to do, but really teaching by being a role model and just by doing.
He had a tremendous influence on me when I was a kid. Learned so much, I think, from an early age, hearing the stories, the value of family, the value of Judaism. Again, his Shabbat lunches, once I got older into middle school and high school, having me over every Saturday night with a steak and potatoes and cream spinach and some kind of Windsor cookie with ice cream, of course. And it was always 100% pure USDA. Steak. It was always the finest steak that they sold, the finest cut that he could find at the supermarket. He would settle for nothing less for his grandchildren, even though at the same time he might take 3 buses to drive around the city of Los Angeles so he could save 29 cents on a can of soup.
To see what hundreds of thousands of others Jews could not, to envision the destruction of European Jewry and know that he needed to leave when everyone else remained comfortable in their homes and stood by and awaited their destruction. And when I think back on that incredible vision, I mean, it's not surprising, because Grandpa has this constant drive to know truth, to knowledge, to understand the world in a better way, to read more articles. He still pores over articles, even though he's blind. He still sits there every single day reading word by word, line by line. But it's that drive to knowledge that I take with me every day in my own life, that drive to understand the world in a deeper way.
If it weren't for my grandfather, I would not have been the soccer player that I probably was. I would not perhaps have the career that I have today. I wouldn't have the worldview that I have today. Was always there cheering me on, always there to give me a pep talk, to pick me up when I was down, or pretty much unconditional love that only a grandfather can provide. So I would not be the person that I am today, certainly without him.
He's always been a great example for generosity, for giving, for caring, and for really making sure that you lead a life with meaning. And not just when you're working, but in fact, after working in retirement, he continued with the same passion and the same commitment to excellence and giving to other people.
I've known Julius for over 30 years. Julius was one of the teachers at the UCLA. He taught vocabulary, and we became friends. And he and his wife, Hilda, came to see me at least twice a year. They became part of my life. They give me lots of love, care, support, encouragement, and guidance. Happy birthday, and many, many more. Mazel tov.
Julio, kol hakavod. Mazal tov on becoming a centurion. I've known you for over 50 years. You've always been a man of integrity, hardworking, great family man, and inspiration to the young generation and to your community. You're an amazing person with a sharp mind and intellect. I admire and love you very much. Ad 120.